Welcome to the Inspiration for an Empowered Life podcast, sponsored by the Image Designers. They will help you look prosperous, feel prosperous, and be prosperous. Now, here's your host, the Image Master, Holly Porter.
Hello and welcome everybody to another day at the podcast. I have a guest, and I always have wonderful guests. I know you hear me say that all the time, but that's because I know such fabulous people. They're mostly women. I know fabulous men too, but I love to work with fabulous women. And so today I have a guest, and her name is Diane Halfman, and she is the Life Reset Solution keynote speaker for one. Oh my gosh, she has this great bio. So I'm going to just bullet point a few things for us to see how awesome she is. She's the host of Your Spalife Show. And she has that where she facilitates conversations with highly accomplished entrepreneurs. She's had Sandra Yancey, which we're both in eWomen, and Lisa Sasevich, and Dr. Larsen, and Morgana Ray. And so they've all created these wonderful lives. And, you know, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. So she helps overwhelmed women who work out of their home reset their life and clear the clutter so that you can finally make your mark in the world. Her credentials are diverse. Aren't most entrepreneurs? We all have these big, huge backgrounds. I call it multi-passioneurs, just so you know. Love it. That's my word, and nobody's using it because I Googled it before I bought the domain. But she also was a life certified coach and has a master's degree in human resources management. And those are all the things that enable her to see beyond the facades that keep many people in overwhelm. And all of us would agree we're always, in and out of overwhelm throughout our life. So over 24 years, Diane's gift was to step into any surrounding and determine what's holding you back, providing simple solutions to what others see as complex. Giving back has always been her core of her work. And so she gives 10% of all her sales to charity, and she loves to partner with people on things. And so if you just watch her help you clear the clutter, welcome to the show, Diane. Wow, and I want to do like this drum roll. Da, 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 da. Here you are.
Thank you, Holly. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh yeah, well I'm thrilled that we were able to make this work out because I know how busy you are, as most entrepreneurs are, right? I'm thrilled to have you here, and our guests are going to learn a lot of things by just stay with us, okay? And so we've got a little bit of time to talk about your story. Like, let's start there. Like, what is it? What's your story?
Right. Well, thank you for asking, and thank you for providing this platform, because I know that your listeners are leaning in and all of the nuggets that you share with them. So I think that is brilliant. And, as the listeners, you think about what is your own journey and what does that look like and how it's impacted. And sometimes we may feel like there's like these one-off things, and how does that actually fit into where you are now? But, I really believe that every aspect of our journey actually compiles the story of who we are today, and that it's so important to embrace all the different aspects to ourselves. So that being said, a lot of people don't know that I was a San Diego police officer for 10 years. I worked patrol as well as undercover. So I worked gangs, narcotics, vice. And that was such a different world, especially going from, in being an employee and having a very set of rules that I operated under, and kind of like the hourly, maybe some overtime and things like that. But then to move into an entrepreneurial life as a spa life strategist and helping people in their environment, a lot of people go, God, that just seems like such a big diverse difference. And one of the things is that I really was helped, whether I was in police work or I'm working with my high level entrepreneurs. It's about what are those structures and those systems and those things that really support you in your life. And for me, I think one of the things is that, and I think that, when entrepreneurs look at the roles that they have, they wear so many different hats. And I know for me, when I showed up in uniform as a police officer, people were calling 911. I had to show up knowing what I was doing, having the strength, making quick decisions, doing those things right on the spot. And, how many times have, you and our listeners been in a place where it's like, you hope you got it all figured out and that you're going to make these great decisions. And especially in police work, you got to make snap, quick decisions. And I would stand in a role of having to be that decision maker and coming with strength. But also, a lot of people don't know at the same time is that I was newly divorced. I had 2 young daughters at the time. And on the outside, it was like having to be strong and doing my job and doing all those things. But behind the scenes, I was worrying about some of the things that we all worry about in terms of making my mortgage payment, making sure that my daughters were safe, making sure all those things happened. And that's where I talk a little bit more about the facade, about who we're being on the outside and how that affects, the other aspects of ourselves and how do we bring all those things together.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you use Clear the Clutter. I say that as well. In fact, that's in a chapter in a book that is launching this year for me. And I just love that. It's so true. Like we all have that clutter that we need to get out of the way. And when we say clutter, it's more in our head. It's not as much in our house, when we talk about clutter, right? I mean,
Right. Well, you're so right because, one of the things that when I was on the police department, because I've literally been in thousands of homes and I've seen people, not when they were ready for me to come. It was like when everything was in disarray and everything just felt crazy. And so at the time I coined a term called the clutter to drama ratio. And what was happening was that the more clutter people had, physical clutter in their space, the more mental clutter, the more drama, the more things that were not working in their life. Now, the people I was encountering then, was to the extent things were so out of whack that they had to have the police intervene. But, I think a lot of people can relate to just different times in their entrepreneurial journey where, things don't seem to be in flow. And then we kind of step up and look around and see that there are things that are not working in our space. But when one thing is not working in one area, it has that ripple effect to affect all the different areas of our life. So you're absolutely right, where it's the physical clutter, it's the mental clutter, it's like, how we're feeling. It's like all those aspects really come into place, which is why I, stepped into my business as being Spalife, where we usually can figure out how to be accomplished, right? This is where your genius comes in about, the prosperity and the aspects where you can really help people. But it's also about the journey and having the harmony and how you're getting there, right? You can have all the great success in the world, but if you do it at the expense of your relationships and your health, what kind of journey was that for you? So you want to look at organizing your business and your life to really be that match for you.
Right. Well, I'm really big on self-care. And so I think that's the first word that comes to me when I think of spa life.
Yeah.
It's self-care. And I don't know how that name come about.
Right. Well, thanks for asking because, this was such a thing where I think this was like a divine naming that happened because it came out of something where when I had just retired from the police department, I had a friend of mine whose daughter had been kidnapped and murdered. And it was a very well-known big case. And what happened during that year, I mean, as you can imagine, I actually didn't work a lot of children cases. I was the liaison between the police department and the family. And what was happening during that time is not only was there fears of my children and our neighborhood and our community and the things that were happening of going to trial during that year. And it was just very, very stressful. I mean, we think about all the stresses that we have. I never wished that level of stress on anyone. Right. And what had happened is that someone had donated for the mother and myself and some women to go to, you actually might be familiar with this, a place called Canyon Ranch in Tucson, which was a health spa that I'd never been to a place like this. And we had spent a week there where we actually were able to pamper every aspect of ourselves, where we were having amazing, food prepared. We were having body services. We were, getting great sleep. We were going hiking out. We were being out in nature. It was all these, there was beautiful art. And when all those extreme self-care was happening, I could see that the stress was starting to just let go with all of us, and we were able to just be, and the kind of conversations that we were having, not only with ourselves, but the other people that were there, were such high level conscious conversations and discussions that it really started coming to me that, when you fully take care of yourself, when you fill yourself up, when you do all of that, you can actually show up as your best self. Even if you've had a lot of tragedy or stress or things where you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't see how I can get this balance in my life. Even under the worst circumstances, you can really shift your life in the moment and then start experiencing how your best self actually looks like. So when I got back, I was part of a coaching program, mentoring called The Ultimate Game of Life. And it was about building your life around what made you happy first, then healthy, then wealthy. And my mentor at the time had asked me, if you could have all the time and money in the world, what would you be doing? And just out of nowhere, I said, I'd be living the spa life. And I explained to him the story I was just sharing with you, that it wasn't just about getting a massage. It was about having the all-encompassing extreme self-care that allowed you to take care of all the different aspects of yourself so you could really be who you want to be. So that's how that was born and how that came out of it. And I share that with our entrepreneurs because there's so many times in the stressful, overwhelming moments of life where we feel like there's just so many things that aren't working, to really encompass this and realize this is really a business tenet that has to happen in order for you to have a longevity and not burn out in your work.
Oh, so true. Well, and I don't know if you knew this about me, but I owned a salon and spa for 17 years. And so, the self-care is so important, but I didn't realize that until actually I stepped away from it. I was in it so much that it was like, when you go get something done for yourself, it was like, I would be out of town doing it, it's like,
Right.
this is what it feels like, and it's not just, I don't mean spa, like a day spa. I mean, I'm not saying that's not what we're necessarily comparing self-care. Self-care is so many things, and so I just love that about it. So let's move and let's talk about environment and willpower.
Yes. I love this conversation because, it really allows people, like, in the beginning of the year, I mean, listeners, for you though who have set a goal in the beginning of the year, a New Year's resolution, an intention for the year, where are you at with that now? Like, did you complete that? Are you in flux? Are you maybe in a place where you're shaming yourself because you just forgot about it within a week or two and there was no sustainability? What happens about that, and this is where you can kind of let yourself off the hook with that, is that, we set these intentions hoping that willpower is going to just get us through, right? And if willpower would be the only thing that would work, then we all would have accomplished all of our New Year's resolutions and we would have made all our goals and everything would be grand, right?
Right.
However, this is why environment is actually greater than willpower, because what you create in your environment actually pulls you into the experience you want to have. So one of my favorite examples are, if you, let's say you had a goal, an intention that you wanted to be more healthy, whether that was you wanted to have more energy, you wanted to lose weight, you wanted to feel better in your body, whatever that health goal was, what kind of environment would you set up in your home in order for that to happen? And I always tell people, if you had this, 1,000-calorie cupcake that was sitting on your kitchen counter and you work from home and you walked past that during the day, it's only a matter of time that you're either going to feel super hungry, super stressed, or there's nothing else to eat and you're just going to eat that cupcake because it's in your environment. I don't care what your willpower is or your intention, the fact that it's there, it's going to break down and have that happen, no matter what you're telling yourself about that. And so that's where the breakdown comes between the willpower versus what is actually in your environment. Now, this happens across the board in all aspects of your life, whether it's, your office. I've got a lot of clients where they don't actually do their most productive work in their office because their environment doesn't, support them. Either there's a lot of papers, or there's not good lighting, or there's something about that environment that doesn't allow them to feel prosperous. Same thing in your bedroom. Is it set up for you to sleep well, to have connection, to really have the experience that you want to have in a bedroom? So this is where your environment trumps willpower and actually pulls you into the experience. So then it's more effortless for you to actually accomplish the things that you set out to do.
Oh yeah. So those are great examples. Okay. So how do tolerations affect our life?
So tolerations are those things that we put up with that one off by itself maybe doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But when you start having enough tolerations in your space, then it really starts impacting how you feel about yourself and about your environment and your results that you're having as well. So for instance, and this is a really fun exercise, if the listeners are driving, don't do this, but if you're home or think about doing this later, actually walk in your home, in each room of your home, and look in there and see, what is it that you love about your space in each room, and what is it that you notice that you're tolerating? What is something that's broken or not working or not happening? A lot of times it's something where, something like a mouse is not working on your computer, or the printer keeps not working, or, you know, there's a part of a carpet that keeps flipping over and people trip over. It's just all these
Or a
little things that can add up.
Sometimes
What?
you pick up a pen and write and it doesn't work.
Right.
Put it back instead of
Right.
throwing it away because you don't
So
want to.
true, right? And so it's these little tolerations that we look at. I had a client of mine, oh my gosh, this is so funny, where a lot of people like, I can't believe this would happen, but you could probably put yourself in this place where she had the light bulb in her closet was out. And she would only realize it in the morning when she would get dressed. So she'd be in a hurry. So she'd go in her closet, the light bulb wasn't working. She would use the light on her phone to find out what she's going to wear and then tell herself, oh, I'm going to fix it later, and then go off to work and then not forget about it until, I mean, and this went on for like weeks for this to have happened. And it's these little tolerations that if you think about it, you think, oh, that's ridiculous, I wouldn't do that. But when you walk around your home and you notice what are some of those things that are happening, I mean, it may even be a dead plant that's been sitting there and you're like, oh, I've been meaning to take that out. It's like all of these things are actually sucking energy away from us, versus the things that are in our space you want to be able to inspire us and to actually give us energy. And when we realize that something is out of alignment and not working, that's a good time to look at what are you tolerating.
Yeah. You know, awareness is so much in everything in our lives. And it's interesting how everybody else can see what our problem is, but us, you know, when you're in it, it's a challenge, you know, and so
Right.
that's why people need to realize they need coaches.
Right.
Like
You know, that's why, you know, one of my favorite quotes by Les Brown is you cannot see the big picture when you're in the frame.
Yeah.
Right. And that is so perfect. And that's why, I mean, I've got several mentors in different areas of my life. I mean, the areas that you and I really help our clients in and we can laser in on them, there's different aspects that we are continuously, you know, growing our own skills and also having somebody else see the things that we're not seeing so that we can show up more brilliantly for the people we're here to serve. We all have those different aspects that other people can see, you know, whether it's a mastermind or a mentoring or those type of things, because you know, when we have that illumination, I'm always continuing to pay it forward with the things that I'm learning on my journey to help, you know, my clients as well.
Well, I am too. And I'm so transparent when people talk about blocking people. I mean, I ran for political office. I don't know if you knew that, several times. And so it's like, I'm so transparent. It's like I'm see-through, you know, it's like, it is what it is. Why do I need to block anyone? If I can't live my life at home or in my other environment as I'm at work, that's not authentic to me, you know? And so, but that's me. I mean, I'm not judging anyone that does that.
No, I think that's a great, because, you know, if you're transparent, then people really feel like they can be transparent and they can actually share and see that we're actually human and we've got experiences that we can, you know, part of why I think we can be, you know, so helpful with other people is because we have a level of experience where we've either done it ourselves or people in our masterminds or people that we've associated with, where we help people save so many steps that we don't want them to have to go through the same challenges that we've had to go through. They'll have their own, but if they have some of the insights that save them, you know, even in an hour a day, a year, I mean, that's a big difference on the entrepreneurial journey.
Well, that's why I started doing the rules books, because they're a question and answer. So it's advice from people in their era of time. And so it's like, if you can learn from somebody else's mistakes, how smart are you? Yeah. I had to do things 3 times before it finally knocked me over the head. I have this big thing with 3 for some reason. Everything I have to do before the lessons learned is 3.
Right. But then you got it.
Yeah. It's like, okay. Well, okay. So I want to like spend so much more time on all this because it's so juicy. So we may have to get you back on another time. I'm thinking, okay, just wrapping up, I know you have something that I can send in the show notes to our listeners to go and get a gift, right? You're a giver.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, when people are trying to, you know, whether it's organizing, you know, their day, their calendar, their life, their environment, the first step is always awareness. There's always areas that we're succeeding in, and then there's those blind spots that we were talking about that you may not see that you have. So I've created a free resource for you and your listeners to have, which is called the liferesetquiz.com. So you just go to liferesetquiz.com and it's 4 minutes. You get an email back right away with your results, and you see in the different areas of your life, what are the things that you're doing really well in and you can celebrate, and what are those blind spots that you've maybe just been putting off and you don't see that you may be able to have some support in. So having the awareness is always the first step that allows you to make those shifts and changes that allow you to live the life you want to live.
And I would add, when they do that, just sharing that with our listeners, be honest with yourself when you answer the questions, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
part of
Right.
getting.
And there's no judgment on that at all. And that's why, you know, a lot of times I share the story of me being in thousands of homes and seeing, you know, people at just all kinds of areas of their life. I mean, there's really nothing anyone could share or say that I haven't seen or been part of. And it really is for you to have that results, because by having that, then you can, you know, make those shifts and changes. And the thing is like, one of the examples I give is that, you know, taking a pulse of where you're at, it's really not like an on or off switch. It's a dimmer switch, right? We can always just, you know, make it up a little bit notch to make it brighter and make things work better for us. But having just those little incremental changes is what we're looking at.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, well, these are such great nuggets, and I hope that our listeners will be able to contact you also on the show notes and take the quiz, everybody, so that you can, even if you feel like you're doing okay, you know, we all get stuck a little bit. We all have clutter to clear, no matter who you are, right? We're
right,
all
absolutely. Well, and people will actually be surprised by the quiz too, because there's little other aspects in there, not just about the physical clutter, but what are some of the things that are causing you drag in other areas of your life, and, you know, how you're looking at certain things and how you're taking care of yourself. So it's very, you know, diverse in the question. So I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised with what that shows you.
Oh, I love it. Oh, well, this has been so. Do you have one thing that you could just share in the last 30 seconds to just some inspiration, anything coming up that you haven't said that you're like, oh, I wish I would have said that?
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes is by Clement Watt, and it is, take the first step, no more, no less, and the next step will be revealed. And what's so important, and this is why I share this with my clients so often and reiterate it over and over again, in fact, I invite you guys to just write it down and have it, is it simply just take the first step. So many times what leads you to overwhelm is you were looking at the fourth and fifth step, but you actually can't make a decision on those steps until you take the first step, because then you have a new view and you make decisions from there. You can actually lessen your overwhelm right in this moment by just looking, what is that next powerful step to take? And then those next steps will be revealed.
Oh, beautiful. Say your website.
Absolutely. You can go to dianehalfman.com, be part of that. I'd love for you guys also to follow me on Diane Halfman Fan and subscribe to my YouTube. I have so many different tips to share with you. I'd love for you guys to reach out, ask me a question, connect with me, and I'd love to support.
Oh, and you will. I know you will. A funny thing I have to say really fast is when you were telling that story and with that beautiful curtain behind you, for our listeners, they can't see it because we do video and audio. It's a beautiful with all her colors. I would look hideous in front of it because my coloring's warm and hers is cool. Anyway, it reminded me that when you said take the first step, I had some a visualization that I did with somebody once and I was stuck. I was like explaining as a fork in the road. And I could go here and I could help a few people and be fine. Or I could go here in the fork and be a world changer and help many. And I said, but when I looked down there, there was like a block wall across the path. And you know what she said? And as soon as she said the words out of her mouth, she said, it's only an illusion. The wall was an illusion. As soon as she started to say illusion, it was like a curtain. It just fell.
Yes.
And it was open and I could take that path that I really needed to go on. And so it's just, yes, take the first step because it will be revealed to you. You have the power within, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you mentioned about the illusion, because the illusion can just, you know, kick us off in a direction, and just know that the illusion's not true, right? I mean, we have all these things, whether it's fear or overwhelm and all these type of things, and you just take that deep breath and you just go like, you know what, this is just trying to take me off my path and my game. You just have to move through it and not have it be that wall. And another thing with, you know, the taking the first step, I love the analogy with the fork in the road. I had another mentor share it with me in a way that you are on a canoe going down a river, and it's going around bends of, like, you know, mountains and hills. And so as you turn, you don't know what the next turn is because you haven't made it yet. And so just because those things are in front of you doesn't mean that there isn't a direction that's happening. It just hasn't been revealed.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Well, and I was explaining to her, I know I need to get through it. I was like, do I go over it, under it, around it? And then she's like, it's an illusion, and it just dropped. So I forgot that part. Anyway, it was amazing. It was a really cool experience, you know. I loved it.
Perfect.
Thank you so much again for being a guest, and all of your information will be below on our show notes, so you can all just go there and get it. And then if you didn't get it written down and you can remember what she said, even better for you. I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you again. And everybody, we will see you on the next show.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Inspiration for an Empowered Life podcast, sponsored by the Image Designers. They will help you look prosperous, feel prosperous, and be prosperous. You can learn more about them at theimagedesigners.com or email Holly at hollyporter.com.